Good morning, everyone. This meeting will come to order. Welcome to the December 13th meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission's Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Wes Tripp. I am chair of the committee. At this time, I'll recognize my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves to you all and highlight their relevant experience. I'll start with Ms. Woodard and then work our way down.
Hi, I'm Lauren Woodard. I'm an architect here in Raleigh. I live in East Raleigh, and I've been here for about 12 years.
And again, my name is Wes Tripp. I'm chair of this committee, and I'm an attorney here in Raleigh.
My name is Melissa Todd. I'm an architect here in Raleigh, and I also live in a historic overlay district.
My name is Jordan Ryland. I'm an architect here in Raleigh, resident of 15 years.
Staff, will you please introduce yourself as well?
Yes, first, for purposes of attendance, Rob Allen is excused. And good morning, everyone. I am Colette Canane. I'm a senior preservation planner. I have been with the City of Raleigh for about 6.5 years, and I have a master's degree in historic preservation.
Good morning. I'm Erin Morton-Pugh, also a senior preservation planner with the city for almost 5 years now, and I also have a master's in historic preservation.
And our attorneys as well.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Catherine Hill. I'm the attorney for the board, and I'm here with an associate attorney today who can introduce herself.
Molly Gross, Associate City Attorney.
Great. Thank you. All right. First item on today's agenda is approval of the agenda. This is an agenda as published. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Motion carries unanimously. So the first item on today's agenda is COA 138-2024, 500 North Blunt Street. Let me do a little introductory matters before we get started on that matter. Just as a background and an overview, the COA Committee is a quasi-judicial body governed by North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. This committee is authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness, which is why you all are here. In hearing these cases, the committee conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means today's hearings are like court hearings. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this committee must make its decisions. These rules are different from some other types of land use decisions, like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. This committee's decisions are constrained by the standard of review set forth in state law and the UDO and the facts presented at the hearing. The committee hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The committee must base its decisions upon competent, material, and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you're speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standard and not personal preference or opinion. Participation in today's hearings are limited. While the meetings are open to the public, everyone is welcome to watch, but parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standard. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts and not opinions. For certain topics, this committee needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property value and projections about impacts on traffic safety, among other things. So now we are ready to move on to the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda. Got ahead of myself a little earlier. The first matter, 500 North Blunt Street. Is this the one that was continued? Yes, so it's going to be continued. So go ahead and open up the case. The applicant is requested that this matter be continued due to medical reasons. So do we need a motion or just set it for a new date?
I think you just need to state the date it's being continued to.
Okay. And what's the January meeting date?
January 23rd.
Okay. So 500 North Blunt Street will be heard on January 23rd, 2025. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, this is COA 140-2024, 1526 Tryon Road. I'll go ahead and recognize staff for their presentation.
Would you like to swear us in?
Yeah, I should do that. Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so this is case COA 140-2024 for 1526 Tryon Road. This is the Carolina Pines Hotel Raleigh Historic Landmark property. The request is mostly in the rear. It's to construct a rear accessory structure addition and trash corral to alter the existing accessory structure window and door openings, replace non-historic windows in the primary structure, replace the rear deck, which is a matter of routine maintenance, just noted here, to alter and expand the existing parking lot, alter grading and landscaping, remove trees, and plant replacement trees. So this is the Carolina Pines property today. It serves as the housing for a fraternity now. This is a view from the front yard. It's set well back from Tryon Road. This is the front parking area. And looking back towards the road, you can see how far back the property really is. It's quite large and isolated. The west facade, east facade, all of the main building, a window detail of some typical window conditions in that primary structure, and the rear. The deck that'll be replaced in kind, and rear parking areas that'll be expanded to provide a new driveway access. And this is the accessory structure. So the front facade, the south facade where the addition is proposed, just moving around the side here toward the rear, and where the new trash corral is proposed. So it's a big property, lots of trees, and of course, a very large rear tree buffer proposed to be retained. So summary of staff concerns are the proposed 1/1 window pattern for the main hotel replacement windows, given that the historic window pattern is 8/8. And the applicants are here to answer questions.
All right, great. Thank you. I believe the applicant is represented by counsel. If you can please go ahead and introduce yourself and anyone who will be testifying today.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Blake Boyd. I'm a local attorney here in Raleigh. I've been retained by Delta Sigma Phi Road Chapter. Their agent here for this matter would be Mr. Gardner. Along with Mr. Gardner is Mr. Perry Cox, as well as Mr. Kettle and Mr. Cobb. They'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I guess they need to be sworn in at this point.
Yeah, let's go ahead and swear them in. If you will be testifying today, please go ahead and rise. Just raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Great, thank you. You may proceed.
And generally, I did not have anything prepared as far as presenting a case, because it was my understanding that Ms. Pugh would present the case. However, if you do have any concerns, I believe it would be best directed at these gentlemen, so we can start there.
Sure. So the next step in the process is to hear any public comments on the case. So we'll go ahead and open up the floor to any members of the public who have comments or would like to speak on the application. All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and proceed with committee questions. If there are any committee questions. Lauren, do you have any questions?
Don't think so, no. Honestly.
Melissa?
No.
Jordan? All right, well, in that case, I'll close the evidentiary hearing. You can have a seat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to committee discussion on the application.
It seems like, based on the info in the staff report, that there were snap-on buttons for these windows. Maybe they just worked their way out of the window or got taken down. So it seems like it's pretty simple to just
It appeared those
put them back in.
over time. Those appeared to have gone away. Any further discussion? All right. Based on the evidence presented in the staff report and in the applicant's presentation, I move that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. One, that the tree protection plan be implemented and remain in place for the duration of the construction phase. Two, that any replacement windows installed in the historic hotel primary building be 8/8 double-hung all-wood windows with 5/8 inches or 7/8 inches putty profiles, 5/4 flat wood trim, and a smooth painted finish. Three, that the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to issuance of the blue placard. A, accessory structure addition scaled eave section detail drawings. B, primary structure manufacturer's window specifications, including section details. C, accessory structure manufacturer's window specifications, including section details, if different from the primary structure. D, addition south door manufacturer specifications, including dimension, material, finish, color, hardware, and trim. E, primary structure elevation drawings marking all windows to be replaced. 4, the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. A, landscaping plan and planting key with mature dimensions. B, HVAC equipment location and screening details, if any. C, exterior lighting specifications, if any. So that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion or debate on the motion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is approval of the application subject to the stated conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The decision will be official after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you very much. All right, the next application on this morning's agenda is COA 141-2024. This is 317 East Jones Street. And I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
Yes, this is COA 141-2024 for 317 East Jones Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to alter the roof form, accessory structure location, and site features. The parcel is currently a vacant lot, so the structures that are being requested to be altered in this situation are approved yet not built. So there isn't really much for you to see based on the site. And the abbreviated summary of staff concerns is just material details and specifications that are typically provided as conditions.
All right, will the applicant please come forward? Go ahead and introduce yourself and anyone who will be testifying today.
Thank you. My name is Ben Kuhn with Ragsdale Liggett here in Raleigh, 2840 Plaza Place. I'm here with Stuart Cullinan and Nick Roberts, who are part of the development team. As you heard, this basically is, well, first of all, you may want to have them go ahead and get
let's go ahead and do
sworn
that.
in. Yes.
Please raise your right hands. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you. Just a short introduction, really. As you've heard, this is an alteration to two previously approved COAs with respect to the house and also the ADU in the back, changing the roof line and the roof structure a little bit and moving the ADU, I believe it was closer to the structure, and that obviously necessitates a couple of the site changes. And Stuart, if you guys, Nick, if you'd like to address the issues on those changes and address any questions. Yes.
Oh, do you want your?
Yeah, is that okay? We can just go through it quick.
Yeah, of course. And you can just scroll or use the arrow.
Okay, thank you. All right, so since our last time here for our approval with the previous layout of the building, we've gone through our site plan review process, and that's necessitated a few small changes to the building. We've also tried to study our floor plans a lot more, which is why we've come to you to present this idea of not necessarily changing the roof line. We're trying to keep the height the same, but we're trying to add some small tweaks. So this is the front elevation. Later, I have these side by side where we can look at kind of the subtle changes that we've made. This is the side elevation showing the addition of the dormers. But again, the ridge of the main house, main structure has not changed in height or pitch. It's the same. This is the rear elevation, pretty similar to the front elevation, and the other side elevation, which is also very similar to the opposite side. These are our floor plans, which were included just for the staff. And then this is the side-by-side, which shows the height of the building up to the ridge line has not changed in this proposal. All we're doing is, instead of a hip, we're trying to convert that to a gable roof and then adding some shed dormers behind that. This is the comparison of the side elevation. So again, the total height doesn't change. It's just because of the shape of the roof, we're able to gain a little bit of conditioned space that we can use to improve the quality of the floor plan. And the comparison of the rear elevation, again, pretty similar to the front. And the other side, also similar. This was included in our previous approval. But again, we've put our new proposed elevation in there to show how that fits into the context of the block face, essentially. It's not the tallest building, it's not the shortest building on the block face, it just kind of falls right in between. And then we've included some precedent examples of buildings that we found that kind of are articulated in a similar fashion. These are really just showing how, relative to the front elevation, how we have a smaller gable with a larger gable, kind of trying to create some similar layering effect that these examples show. And then this is a couple of examples of how we're arranging windows on our gable end, just to try to fit in as best we can with the context of the neighborhood. And then this starts to talk about facade materials relative to just the face of the gable. We found throughout the district there were a wide variety of different gable materials, but we kept seeing over and over again this sort of shingle shake pattern. So that's, we're trying to pull pieces that we find throughout the district and combine them into a cohesive building. Here's a few more examples. The one on the left shows kind of a straight line, and the one on the right is staggered. What we're proposing is more similar to the one on the left with the straight, but some flexibility there. And then we also went through the district and tried to locate a number of examples of buildings which look like they had a shed dormer added to them, just to further try to fit in with the context of the district. And then I think this is the final thing in our proposal, which is relocating the accessory structure. On the left is our new proposed site plan, which is a result of working with fire sprinkler consultants, civil engineers, getting our first rounds of site plan review. We think these are small tweaks. Mainly it's moving the accessory structure closer to the street, which is a result of the hose pull requirements. So it moved closer by, I think, 50 feet, but we feel that's not really very perceptible from the street, just due to the site is extremely deep. So I think it's a pretty subtle change. And then going through our site plan review, we've also had to adjust the location of the trash corral for the garbage and recycling bins. Yep, I think that's the last slide. Oh yeah, sorry, the final kind of requirement with this change was adding some ADA parking spots, so.
All right. Anything else from the applicant?
Just briefly, so it's a result basically of the process and work you've done in the site plan review process and items coming up in the site plan review process that needed to be tweaked and changed, at least particularly with respect to the ADU and the location of the ADU that's changed some of the site features, correct? Yeah. And so they've been working on this site diligently, and as you can see by two different COA applications, and now with the site plan, the feedback from the site plan or from some of the changes have been necessitated to come back here for this request, and we request that they're reasonable and in line with the architectural features in the area, and they are not incongruous with those, so we'd ask that you approve this COA application. Thank you very much. And move introduction of this presentation and all the other documents, please.
So,
thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Yes, please come forward. Please introduce yourself.
Chris Crew, 306 Elm Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you. First, I'd like to comment. Well, first of all, I'd like to say Mr. Tripp is aware of my CV. I'll say very shortly that I'm a 50-year resident of Oakwood, and for 26 years, I've served the state of North Carolina as a planner and community development specialist. I would like to comment, first of all, on the scheduling of this meeting. You know, these are important matters that should be brought before the public at a regularly scheduled meeting, not on a Friday morning. Enough of that. This application to me represents a second bite of the apple. You know, the considerable public input went into what was finally approved based on consensus between the public and the developer. And this altered proposal, the struggle in that initial set of hearings was over mass and shape and size. And so, you know, the design that was approved has been exhaustively examined and finally approved. And I think that this does not is not in keeping with the mass, shape, and other issues of contributing structures that were presented in Oakwood. I think in the presentation that was given, the comparable structures are not particularly comparable to this, so I urge that you stick with the originally approved COA. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And I'll also note that this meeting was properly noticed and scheduled pursuant to state law. Thank you.
Hi, Curtis Case Fang, Oakwood resident, 519 Polk Street. I'm one of the founding board members for Preservation Raleigh. I was 8 years a commissioner, all of which was on the COA committee, so it's very weird being on this side of the table.
Before you continue, let me swear you in.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Let's see. So 8 years on COA. Between my 6-year run and the subsequent 2-year run, there was 10 years on DRAC. So I've got about 18 years of interpreting the guidelines under my belt. And I am here speaking as an Oakwood resident, not a member of any organization. The initial design, as Chris noted, was arrived at after a lengthy discussion and agreed upon by the commission. But it was an edge case. It was pushing lot coverage, building size relative to the bulk of the district. I believe that the addition of the side dormers make the east and west facades incongruous. Because of their massing, they are incongruously large. And if you look at all of the evidence that the applicant has presented, you'll find that none of it actually supports this level of massing on this site. Let's see, the hipped roof only makes, moving from a hipped roof to a gable roof only makes things worse in terms of the apparent scale of the structure. Part of the thing that the hipped roof did for the original design that was approved by the commission was actually reduce the apparent scale. Another thing to note about the approved design is that the east-west symmetry and along with the north-south symmetry of this building are rather atypical for Oakwood. And it's a result of how they came about to the design. Lastly, I want to point out something that the attorney for the commission used to drill into us when I was sitting in your chair, which is that you're not approving a collection of attributes. You're approving the totality of the design as being congruous or not incongruous with the guidelines and the built pattern of the neighborhood. I believe that what you're looking at is here incongruous with the pattern of the neighborhood, and I request that you find the proposed changes to be incompatible with the built pattern of the district, especially the nearby well-related structures. If you look at East Jones Street, you'll find that the 500 block has rather massive structures on it, but they're on much, much larger lots than this. And this is in context with comparatively smaller structures. So this is problematic. But I thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional comment on the application? Please introduce yourself.
Good morning.
Just go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll swear you in.
Alec Jeffries. I do not have an extensive background in development. I am simply a neighbor with children and care deeply about this block.
I'll swear you in now. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. I rise today in opposition to the changes specifically to the roof structure. This is a clear example of trying to cram as many units as possible into a structure. It is not consistent with other houses on this block. It, I think, creates a lot of life safety and egress concerns with 2 additional units on the top floor. And while there are a couple examples of dormers throughout the neighborhood, they're typically set back from the street line, and certainly not this large. So I support the previous 2 gentlemen that rose, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment on the application?
Mr. Chair, I know he said he was a neighbor. You might want to ask for his address, too, for the record. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
On the corner of Bloodworth and Jones, 123 North Bloodworth. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any additional comment on the application? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Austin Maddox. I live at 312 East Jones Street.
Great. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Thank you. You may proceed.
I'm also in opposition to the addition to the previous plan as stated by the others. The previous process was taken under full review by a lot of caring neighbors and the board who's obviously very invested in Oakwood. And, and it was given quite a bit of thought. This addition is just, as stated, pushing for more units. I personally live just across from it, and I do have a lot of concern about not only the addition of the dormers being quite large and again not congruous at all with Oakwood, being that it essentially adds a 3rd story, but also the addition of more units on a small street. Questions of things like has been brought up, trash, general permeability on a street that has a great deal of water issues as it is, and general safety is brought up before. So I also am against these additions for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm James Britt. I'm one of the owners of 316 East Jones, directly across the street from 317.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We've had the 316 for 20 years, and we've followed the development of the Oakwood neighborhood. And my view is that this building is totally incongruous with the neighborhood historic. The house that we're in is originally was 1877 with multiple additions through the years. One of my concerns is the same as my neighbors. Parking, the extra traffic, trash, and in my opinion, which I'm not an architect, is that the structure itself is just not congruent with our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, seeing none, I'll now provide the applicant an opportunity to respond to the comments from the public.
Hello, my name is Stuart. I live at Stuart Cullinan. I live at 319 Sewell Avenue. So when we received the COA approval last year, it did have a lot of input from our neighbors, and we'd gone through that process. One of the neighbors was sort of leading kind of that group. And I did reach out to him a few times, and I just got the impression without any response that this wasn't, there wasn't sort of what I just heard from the neighbors. So I didn't go to every neighbor that was involved person by person. That's probably my fault. So I do want to address a couple of the things that came up. In terms of like units, we haven't finalized our floor plans, and after we made our submittal in November on the COA, we were asked to provide a floor plan, and we provided, something that we drew up that week. One of the things that sort of led us to make this request for the roof line change was as we were going through the floor plans and again sketching things, because we didn't feel like we could finalize that until we were sort of getting really out of the civil engineering sort of site plan review process. We realized that some of these units were kind of too small, and so what we've been exploring is not changing the number of units, but rather just changing sort of the floor plans to make them a little bit more generous in size. And just more spacious, and just kind of improve the quality. So this wasn't this wasn't a grab for units, which might have been sort of, someone's skeptical impression. In terms of the parking, obviously we've gone through the civil engineering process, and there's a lot of rules when it comes to parking spaces and ADA ramps, and there's like 4 different consultants involved, and so I think we've done a really good job of, on the one hand, balancing the structure that was approved last year prior to the site plan review process. I mean, we pretty much have the same structure. What did change is, while we didn't increase the number of parking spaces, the aisles had to tweak a little bit to comply. The ADA spaces got, added and were a little wider, and then there's ADA travel and some other handicap ramps that get required just as part of the process. So we didn't increase the amount of parking spaces. It just, it sort of changed in size because of the regulations. In terms of trash, there's sort of trash requirements as well in terms of like the corral size. And so in our COA last year, we didn't have the benefit of the site plan review comments. And so now that we do, we had to sort of relocate the trash. And then lastly, the accessory structure, again, it was purely driven by the hose pool requirement. We had previously tried to see if we could work with one of our neighbors, North Carolina beer distributor kind of group, about sharing the alleyway so that a fire truck could get access. But because the fire lane requirement's 24 feet, we couldn't get a fire truck back there. So much of this below the roof line has everything to do with just the regulations that are required through the site plan review process, which I think we all knew was coming up. And we'd kind of been speaking with staff that we were likely going to have to come back and make a couple tweaks. And so those are the tweaks. As far as the roof line goes, we've proposed something that we think improves the quality of the floor plans. And we think we found, precedent for it. And so but at the end of the day, we're sort of looking for feedback. And hoping that you like what you see, but if there's feedback, we want to hear it too.
Finally, I just wanted to address the egress and life safety comments. What we're showing is fully compliant with the North Carolina State Building Code. And in fact, the relocation of the accessory structure is a result of that process. And then finally, both of these buildings are going to be sprinklered, also per the state building code. So, yeah.
Again, Ben Kuhn on behalf of the applicant. As you know, you're tasked with reviewing this, and you have a standard of review, and it's outlined in your staff report that the COA committee shall not refuse to issue a certificate of appropriateness except for the purposes of preventing the construction, reconstruction, alteration, restoration, moving, or demolition of buildings, structures, or appurtenant features, outdoor advertising signs, or other significant features in the HODG, HODS, or other historic landmarks which would be incongruous with the special character of the district or landmark. So you've heard the testimony. You saw the evidence presented in terms of the congruity in the application materials. And that's the evidence that's before you in the record. And we suggest that it's the competent substantial material evidence that supports the issuance of a COA amendment in this matter. We'd appreciate your approval of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next I'll close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, and we'll move to committee discussion. Just some opening comments from me. I think I was the only one at the table who was on the committee that decided these initial applications when they were first before this commission. I'm pretty sure Rob was also on the committee at the time, but he's not here. So these are two previously approved COAs, and a lot of the comments that we heard from the public related to height, massing, those things have already been litigated and decided. We only have two changes that are here before us. The alterations to the primary building with the dormers, and then the alteration to the accessory structure, and the siding of it being moved. So I just want to remind the committee that that's all that's before us.
Wes, I sat on at least one of these as well.
Good.
I remember
My
this one pretty
apologies.
well.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, it's all good. Is this the question portion?
Did we skip that?
I think we did.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. My apologies. Let's reopen the public hearing, and then we'll proceed with committee questions. You got a little preview of at least what I was thinking.
If one or either of you want to come up and answer, just a couple questions here. The proposed trash/recycling area, is it a covered structure, or is it sort of a fenced-in enclosure kind of deal?
It's just a fenced-in enclosure, yeah.
Okay. I guess another question I have is, it's been answered a little bit, but the attic windows in some of the verbiage in the application makes it seem like they might be vents, but they look like windows. Are they windows?
Yeah, they're all
windows.
windows, yeah,
Okay.
in the gables, yeah.
And I guess it's a little unclear how much of the design changes were as a result of your zoning review. I think I understand moving the accessory structure and reworking the parking. I'm a little unclear on what, if anything, would be impacted in changing the primary structure design by zoning review.
Yeah, I don't think, I think they're two unrelated situations where, the site plan review affected sort of parking, trash corral, ADU location, and then just as we continued to study our options with the floor plans and with the building, that's sort of two unrelated situations, yeah.
And it has been a little while, but if I remember correctly, I mean, it's kind of shown here on your site plans, the parking is supposed to be some sort of pervious surface, paver. It appears that the size of the parking lot, if you will, has grown. But I don't see any accompanying, I guess, square footages to either support or not support that. Have you done that analysis?
I don't have the hard numbers in front of me. I think it is slightly larger, and I think the result of that is through the site plan review process and working with civil engineer, doing layouts, adding in an ADU space that has sort of the blocked off where you enter and exit your car. So that's essentially a space that's not a parking space, so that adds to the square footage. As far as materials, I think the plan is still to do it as gravel. Of course, that ADA space is going to be sort of a concrete pad that is next to a sidewalk for access.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from the committee?
I do. Again, either or. This is a design question, so designer would be good. I wasn't on the previous review for this, so pardon me if this is ground covered, but you did speak to changes in the upper level that result in these dormers being the direct result of a plan exercise to improve those units. Was the previously approved COA units in a third floor under an attic roof?
Previously, it was just an attic,
Okay.
and there were essentially 2 floors. What the proposed change does is, well, we're still sort of in that floor plan analysis. We were asked to include the floor plans, so we just kind of put floor plans in of where we're at right now. But what it does is allow us to, it just gives us more flexibility where we can change some of the lower units to be larger 2-bedroom units so that the unit count doesn't increase, or it allows us to add lofted space within a second floor unit. Basically just allows units to be better units.
But the result of the change is 8 units to 10 units from the last COA, correct?
Yeah, on the floor plans that are in here, but the floor plans are not like set in stone.
Sure.
And it's our understanding that the COA process is more about the exterior and not the interior exact layout.
Sure.
That is correct.
Right, correct. Yeah, just wanting to understand
Okay.
where the dormers are coming from, really, and what the
essentially
what's
allows us
driving
flexibility
dormers versus no dormers.
and other opportunities for internal spaces.
Sure. Okay. And I think, yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Additional questions from the committee? Melissa? Any final questions? All right. Now we'll close the evidentiary hearing. And
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Back to Jordan's question about the parking lot. I just wanted to remind everyone that currently the entire site is impervious. So our goal is to drastically reduce impervious surface. From our previous proposal, there's some tweaks, but it's a small order of magnitude different than the original.
thank you. Any final questions? All right, now we'll close the evidentiary hearing and reopen committee discussion. Lauren, comments?
Oh, I just wanted to say I feel like I'm going to be deferring to some of those of you who have a little more background. I think seeing this on an initial glance for the things that we are reviewing, having the context of the background in your view is helpful for me. So.
I mean, a lot of the comments we heard today were comments that were made in opposition of the application when it was before us twice before. Those concerns are valid concerns, but this committee, as to the size and the height and the massing of the structure, that's been decided. So, and we can't change that, can't relitigate it. We can only look at what the changes that are before us and whether those changes are congruous or not with the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the members of the public called it a second bite at the apple, and in some ways that kind of appears to be true. I mean, it is the same size, more or less, but I think specifically the changes on, I guess, the non-primary facades, the east and west, really do change the apparent massing. Yeah, it's in two ways it's sort of a very similar building, but in two other ways it's kind of entirely different. So I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around what that means as far as the accessory structure in the parking lot. I think that's fine, but
Yeah, I don't think any heartburn is I don't think anyone's at the table is having heartburn about the accessory structure.
Yeah.
It's the alterations to the primary building concerning the dormers. I understand and appreciate the concerns about massing on that third level increasing. That's as pointed out in the staff report. But the staff report also does say that examples were provided of contributing structures that feature roof forms that are broken down into multiple units as viewed from the front facade and with dormer additions. So there is evidence for what the applicant's wanting to do on that third floor.
I don't necessarily find the addition of dormers to be incongruous. To me, it seems examples have been provided. It is congruous. It's not quite working for me, or that doesn't seem to be congruous, is the fenestration pattern on the dormers and the asymmetrical pattern. I think in the examples provided, there's either just a few windows that are located in the center, or they're just treated differently. I can see that they're in the proposed elevation aligned with the windows below, but in the I think it was the example on Euclid, it's more of a block of windows that are just treated separately. I think that would help.
Melissa, can you speak into the microphone?
Yeah, sorry. That if there was more symmetry with the window treatment in the dormers, that would help with the congruity.
Bring the applicant back up, ask them if they were able to hear and understand that, and if that's something that could be addressed.
Yeah, I was able to hear. Can we respond to that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing and allow you the opportunity to respond.
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, as far as the asymmetry of, I guess I can show you what I'm talking about. How, if we're looking at each dormer independently, say the dormer on the left, the windows are not symmetrical within the dormer, but they are aligned with the windows below on the first two floors. And part of that is because we were trying to push the front, like from the front elevation, push that dormer wall back a little bit so that if you're walking on the street or driving, the perspective is that the dormer is not all the way out at the same plane as the exterior wall. But at the same time, we're not married to this exact window layout, so we're open to, you know, we're flexible with the window layout. If there's any kind of heartburn with that, we're open to changing that.
Okay, thank you. Were there any additional questions on the windows while we had the hearing open? Okay. Go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing and bring the matter back to the table for discussion.
Okay. I agree with Melissa's sentiment about the dormers. I think that in general, dormers in this district are not incongruous. It is the sort of placement and massing of them for me that is pushing the edge of essentially kind of becoming a new roof line. The presence of them towards the front is not something we have evidence for. The evidence we have for dormer configuration that's similar is set behind a primary structure that from the street masks its presence there. And then the others that are of a similar mass, these sort of very wide dormers, are facing the front in a way that's more reminiscent of a traditional Oakwood bungalow style. So having these more wider dormers that are also coming closer to the primary front, I do think, even though I appreciate the effort to try to keep them farther back, they're not that far back from the front facade. And I do think that they would create a presence of continued flat wall in that case rather than a setback dormer. So for me, I think this isn't just the addition of dormers. To me, it does feel like an addition of mass. It doesn't increase the building's height, but it is sort of it will create a more squared presence to this building. So for me, that is, it's significant.
Melissa, do you think there's certain language that could be added to potential conditions that would address your concerns about the symmetry?
Wes, is it okay if I address the?
Yeah, let me go ahead and I'll reopen the public hearing.
Sorry. I think one thing that we discussed during this is we wanted to show you this idea, but we also had an idea that we could, it's almost like if you chopped the building in half and went with the old previously approved front with the hip, and then in the back just do the dormers. That's sort of what you're saying, is that most dormers that you find are kind of at the rear of a structure. We're open to that, or potentially keeping a hip and then doing a smaller dormer kind of in that left side of this, this particular elevation. So if there's kind of any way to discuss like a conditional approval of something that's sort of like a hybrid situation, we're open to that as well.
I think that sounds like a move towards congruity in that sounds positive. I think it would be difficult to create a condition that allows that to get reflected in this session.
Yeah, I think something like that we would have to see again, so it would be you could always continue the case for them to bring back a different rendering for, I'm not using the right words for how the sheets looks, but yeah, I don't think that that's something you could condition today without seeing it.
I think we'll go ahead and reclose the public hearing and bring the matter back to the table for discussion. What's the consensus of the committee on seeing some additional renderings of some reshaped dormers?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Lauren here. There's just compositionally, it's very different from previous application. So I don't think there's language that we could add that would get them an approval. So yeah, continuation to next month.
Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would agree that the language would not be, enough for continuing the application. I think it would be helpful to see if you do have different visuals that show more congruity with your dormer examples, because right now I think we're just not quite there yet.
All right, given all that, I'm going to move that the application be deferred to the February 27, 2025 meeting of this committee. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. So the application's been deferred to the February 27 meeting. Please work with staff on the deadlines for producing additional renderings for the dormers. Thank you. All right, the next matter on today's agenda is COA 139-2024. This is 311 East Eatonton Street. I'll recognize staff for their presentation. Do we need to recess for a minute? Are we good?
Would it be possible to discuss with the applicant if, for the previous case, if January would be, they do have 2 weeks to revise drawings?
Yeah, we can just, we want to recess for 5 minutes? Or do we need to, or is that, the discussion's been made?
It seems that they would prefer the January 23rd, 23rd meeting.
Okay.
And the deadline for submitting that will be December 27th, which is quick. You okay with that?
Okay, Judge needed to reopen the hearing and...
Yeah, I think it's just, you just need to continue it to a date certain in the meeting. So if you're changing the date, just state the date that you're continuing it to.
Okay, just make that statement on the record?
I think, yeah.
Okay, all right, so COA 141-2024, 317 East Jones Street is being continued to January 23rd, 2025. All right, thank you. All right, are we ready?
All right,
We ready to proceed? Okay.
We're ready.
Back on 311 East Eatonton.
So this is case COA 139-2024 for 311 East Eatonton Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, a general HOD. The nature of the request is to demolish the primary structure and connected accessory structure, remove 11 trees, remove site features, and landscaping. And I will note that this and the next two applications are all submitted by the same applicant for the adjacent property, so we will have a similar conversation. So this is a view from Eatonton Street of the structure, and a close-up. A view from the sidewalk and just walking around the building, the west side, the rear addition, close-up of that. A view from the rear of the parking lot looking at the rear facade. The existing rear yard parking lot. And a very difficult to see view of the east facade. A summary of staff concerns. No evidence was provided to assert that the building has no particular significance or value towards maintaining the character of the Oakwood Historic District. Elevation, roof, and floor plan drawings documenting the structure were not provided. The demolition guidelines, alternatives to demolition, salvage were not addressed. The site plan does not provide dimensions that locate the house on the site. And no information was provided regarding the health of the trees proposed for removal, and no replacement trees are proposed.
All right, thank you. Recognize the applicant now.
Good morning. Diane Becker. I'm the attorney for Copper Builders, and Mr. Charles Walker is going to speak. He's the landscape architect on the project.
All right. Sir, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. 311 Edenton Street is the first of three lots we'll be discussing this morning. It also includes 307, which is to the west, and 325, which is to the east. This is a building, this first one is one of the three properties that were brought into the Historic District in the Second Amendment back in 1987. Has been a commercial office for a very long time, and it has a supportive parking lot behind it. As many of you know, the new city-sponsored New Bern Avenue zoning case, these three lots were part of that zoning case for the I to redevelop. The Brewer family, members of the Brewer family own all three lots, and what we're asking to do is start the process for redevelopment, the possibility of redevelopment in these areas. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking about three together because it is seen together. These three lots are the western edge of the historic district. It's also the southern edge of the historic district, and these three lots front on Edenton Street, and they have a beautiful view of the back parking lot of the U.S. Post Office across the street. Further down the block, the next block, intervening block, is Bloodworth, and all the homes in that area front on Bloodworth. So these three lots together front on Edenton by themselves. The next residential unit next door to the east fronts on Bloodworth, as do the rest that go down the property. Again, we're listing this for removal, and we have in our conditions that we will spend time asking or trying to see if there is any kind of interest in either. We don't think moving the structure since it's so large, but at the very least allow some kind of salvage work by a third party, as we would also do with the duplex next door. So again, this is the first of the three units as part of a redevelopment, a proposal for redevelopment in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat.
I'm sorry, one more thing.
Sure, go ahead.
The question was about no replacement trees. Since we're looking to do a redevelopment project, what we would commit here now is there was a total of 21 trees over the three lots. There are 11 here that we would replace. We would stipulate there would be trees that would meet the criteria for replacement trees on each of these lots.
Great, thank you. This time I'll open up the floor to comment from members of the public on the application. Come forward. Got to go through the whole formality of introducing and swearing in again.
Chris Crew, 306 Elm Street.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. This is a very problematic proposal. These structures that are being proposed for removal stand guard on the eastern and southern borders of a recognized and the oldest historic overlay district in the city of Raleigh. These are contributing structures. This proposal to remove them, you can't deny it. You can and absolutely should defer this for 365 days. In regard to the tree removal, the guidance is unclear on whether you can refuse that or not. My view is that there's no reason to review a tree removal until you are reviewing a replacement design for these properties. And thus, I would suggest to you that you please deny the removal of the trees until there is ample evidence that there is a reason to remove them. The reason behind this is that trees are a defining character feature of a historic district. And to remove 21 trees is an environmental abomination, particularly when there is no proposal for replacing them. So again, I am staunchly opposed to this entire one, and I will speak again when the next one comes up. Thank you.
Are there additional members of the public who wish to provide comment on the case?
Curtis Casefang again.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. If you could pull any kind of qualification questions in from the earlier case, I'd appreciate that. For the record, use is irrelevant, view is irrelevant. They just have literally nothing to do with what you're deciding on, so that information is irrelevant. What is relevant is that these are contributing structures, that as per staff's notes, there's no evidence that suggests that there's anything that's changed about that condition, and with all the trees, there's no evidence that's been presented that says that they're disease dangerous or any other reason not to, or to expedite their demolition. I recommend approval with a 365-day delay, during which time we can work with the applicant on alternatives to demolition and also undertake some education as to what could possibly go back. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional members of the public who wish to provide comment? Please introduce yourself.
Let's make so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Judith Taylor. Excuse me. Co-owner with my daughter of 115 North Bloodworth, which is the property that backs onto and is just on the east and north of the properties, the three properties under discussion.
Okay. Let me go ahead. Yeah. You knew what was next. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So as I agree totally with the comments being made by our neighbors, my daughter moved into the historic district in 2008. And as you can tell, maybe from my accent, I grew up in London, England, and historical buildings are really, really important there. And so Oakwood Historic District, along with some of the other parts of this town, really appeal to me and our family in terms of what this area has to offer. The reason in England why properties are old is because they're not demolished. So the concern that we have is the demolishment of two beautiful buildings. I will also note that part of my background is that my husband and I and numerous volunteers over the years have worked for 30 years on historic preservation in the national parks and national forests, where key thing there on the historic buildings in those areas is, first of all, to stabilize the buildings. Secondly, to address the roof. Thirdly, is, and ultimately, is to have the buildings be used. Buildings don't survive very well when they're left empty. They just don't like it. And that is what's happening to these two properties because they're not being maintained. So maintenance is real important. Also, speaking to the trees, I agree totally, it makes no sense to take down these trees until you know the layout of what's being suggested to be replaced in that building. Where is the access points going to be? I heard somebody talk earlier about a truck lane, a fire truck lane. How many access points do you have to have for that structure? We don't know. Many of the trees are really, really old compared to us. So taking down a 150-year-old tree to replace by a sapling is not consistent with the second major characteristic along with the historic buildings is the tree canopy. The tree canopy in this district is wonderful. It's the variety of trees that you have and the canopy they provide. We have a fountain during the summertime in the backyard. The birds love it, and they are part of the canopy that exists from these 21 trees next door that are being proposed to be taken down. So I would suggest that you strongly do not allow the demolition of the buildings, but importantly, don't take down the trees until we know what's going to be there. Several of the trees are right against the fence line. Why take down trees that are against the fence line? Doesn't make sense. So till we know what the layout is going to be, I strongly in opposition to both the demolition of the buildings on all three other, on the two properties and the taking down of wonderful trees. Thank you.
Any additional members of the public who'd wish to provide comment on the application? Please introduce yourself, sir.
Good morning. My name is Glenn Sappy. I live at 117 North Bloodworth Street.
Okay, thank you. Please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I guess I'd like to just all the comments that I've heard so far in opposition to this moving forward, I would like to second those comments. I was not aware that the north west corner of the property line, which I share 55 feet of that property line, there's a fence that is offset by that corner of the property by 6 feet. So that 6 feet has been, in my opinion, property that I've maintained for the last 29 years. We have a crepe myrtle tree and some dwarf maples that we've recently planted, 5 years ago, have planted in along there. And so that's 6 feet that encroaches into their property I was not aware of. So there's a, there's a fence there, and I'd probably like to see that be the extent of the development of that property, rather than for them to come into what I thought was my property by an extra 6 feet by 55 feet. Concerned about the height of the building that might be proposed there, but we don't know what that is at this point. And I guess I'd like to see things remain the way they are. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any additional members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the application? Please introduce yourself.
Matthew Brown, 401 North Person Street.
I'll go ahead and swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for your service to the people of Raleigh, and thank you for letting me speak. The demolition of the historic houses at 311 and 325 East Edenton Street would be the first demolitions of contributing principal structures in Oakwood since the demolition of the Mansion Square Inn in 1995, a crime that lives in infamy. Demolition of these houses would set a dangerous precedent, not only in Oakwood, but in all of Raleigh's historic overlay districts. We implore you to impose the maximum delay on this demolition. According to RHDC Guidelines Section 4.2, quote, "The Commission will weigh the impact of the proposed demolition on the overall character of the historic district, as well as adjacent contributing buildings. These houses most definitely have significance and value for the character of the historic Oakwood overlay district. The G. Ernest Moore House, as pictured, is built in 1925 with splendid beveled leaded glass in its front door and side lights and transoms. This artistry and craftsmanship cannot be reproduced today. The Rufus H. Womble House at 325 East Edenton was built in 1889. Its architecture is typical of that period. It has served as affordable housing for decades. These properties are bordered on the east, north, and west by other historic houses and Gringo Restaurant, which is also in a historic building. The block is intact with no modern intrusions. Oakwood's significance and value is not based on a handful of especially important buildings, unlike some historic districts. Its claim to fame is as the largest intact 19th century residential neighborhood in the state. Of the 425 historic houses in the overlay district, no two are exactly alike. Loss of any of Oakwood's historic houses will impact its character and lessen its value. The houses adjacent to these houses will lose their historic context. What compounds this tragedy is that the applicant could demolish the houses even though the proposed townhouse development is unlikely to be approved, as it will clearly violate Guidelines Section 3.3, being incongruous with surrounding historic buildings. Please do whatever is in your power to prevent this tragic loss. Thank you.
Are there any additional members of the public who'd wish to provide comment on the application? Yes, ma'am.
Made it.
Please introduce yourself.
I made it without my written comments, so I'll just speak extemporaneously.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Dee Penvin Crew. I am currently the president of the Society for the Preservation of Historic Oakwood. I've lived in Oakwood since 1989. My husband and I have redone 2 houses there.
Before you keep going, let me go ahead and swear you in.
Okay.
So please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
You may proceed.
My biggest concern with the demolition of any properties in historic Oakwood is the nibbling away at the fabric that makes Oakwood what it is. If we lose these 2 houses, the deck of cards will begin to crumble, and we will see more development pressure to try to incent homeowners to sell their properties with the intent of demolishing them and then changing the historic fabric of the neighborhood. As Matthew just stated, the neighborhood is only as good as it is whole. And as we begin to nibble away at the edges of that neighborhood, as we've seen in other neighborhoods in the city, the nibbling just continues. We found out recently that a large number of properties were rezoned without our knowledge and without an opportunity for public comment, and those are all going to be at risk if this is allowed to proceed. I understand that there is only a 12-month delay that can be provided, but that 12 months would give us the opportunity to work with the property owner to see if there is any other opportunities to either dissuade demolition or moving of the structures to another lot. Also, a townhome development in the middle of Oakwood doesn't really meet the guidelines as far as we can determine, and hopefully we don't tear down houses and then have a big and empty lot with the loss of beautiful historic properties. I urge you to do anything you can to delay demolition of these properties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there additional members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application?
Hello again.
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Austin Maddox, 312 East Jones Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
So as stated before, so where I'm located at 312 East Jones Street, I'm catty corner to the previous discussion, and this new project is directly behind me. I'm a Raleigh native. I grew up here, and always grew up going to the Oakwood candlelight tour and revering Oakwood as, I don't know, something special to me even as a kid in Raleigh. So when I had the opportunity to move there as an adult, I was quite thrilled and raised my family there with my 7-year-old. This project would sandwich my house between essentially 2 apartments, which of course I'm speaking only from one perspective, but that's obviously not what Oakwood, the character of Oakwood in any way, or the neighborhood that it is. So I'm also firmly against removing irreplaceable structures of historical value. I'm not as clear on, I don't know what the rules are on the tree part of the aspect, but I can tell you that those very large trees do create that buffer behind my house, at least, to the federal building, whatever it is behind us. So it is invaluable, and replacing them with twice as many trees will not be replacing what is lost. Same as replacing a old house with a new. It's not a one-for-one replacement. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the application? All right. Seeing none, I'll open up the floor to the applicant to provide a response to the comments from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The large trees that are on the site are actually on all 3 sites. These 3 lots together are less than an acre. So the trees themselves, based on horticultural practices, couldn't keep 1 tree alive by leaving the undisturbed area at the base of the tree, much less 21. So the simple mechanics are not there as far as the trees go. If there's any disturbance in there, there is not enough room to protect all of those trees, simply not enough. Raleigh's landscape ordinance recognizes the limitations on how much ground can be taken up by those kind of issues. Just as far as, so we've been given some information based on the people involved in here. I'm just going to take 1 or 2 minutes just to say, I served on the Raleigh Appearance Commission for 8 years. I served on the Planning Commission for 9. I also helped author the Raleigh Landscape Ordinance and the Tree Preservation Ordinance. So, and the only other place that I have any kind of other experience in removing structures from Oakwood is the Fallon's Greenery, which became Oakwood Green, which won a Sir Walter Raleigh Award several decades ago. This is the first step in the process. The current owners would like to renovate and change the uses of this project, and the first step is to allow the removal of these houses and the landscaping to allow that to happen. We understand that the board has the ability to apply the 365-day delay. during that time, we would welcome speaking to neighbors, design professionals, the staff, as we move forward with this project. But this is simply the first step of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll proceed with committee questions of the applicant, if there are any. Well, Lauren? Okay. We'll go ahead and close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, move to the table with committee discussion. There's really not much to discuss here. I mean, we, pursuant to state law, we have to approve the application, but subject to the conditions of doing a at least a 365-day demolition delay, which appears that the applicant is fine with that, and we'll work with staff and the committee and neighbors to look at ways to either potentially salvage or other options for the property. Is there any other discussion among the committee? Okay. All right, I'm going to move that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. One, that a 365-day demolition delay be imposed. That an RHDC appointed, number two, that an RHDC appointed volunteer serve as a liaison to the property owner to assist the owner in reviewing all alternatives to demolition and or salvage opportunities during the 365-day delay. Three, that 11 replacement trees of a similar species, size, and mature canopy coverage to the trees being removed be planted on the subject property and or in the right-of-way along the south property line. So motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So the application or the approval will be official after next month's meeting, after the minutes are approved and signed. So thank you. But you won't be going far because we have 2 more applications left to go. Just everyone at the table, how's everyone doing? Do you want a break or do you want to keep rolling?
Let's keep rolling.
All right, let's keep rolling. Okay, next application, COA 155-2024. This is 307 East Edenton Street, an adjoining lot. I'll recognize staff for their presentation.
Right, so as you said, this is 307 East Edenton, the lot to the west of the one previously discussed. The nature of this request is to remove 6 trees and remove the parking lot and existing site features. And this is a view of the current parking lot from the sidewalk along Edenton Street. And this is from the rear of the parking lot looking back towards Edenton. And an abbreviated summary of staff concerns. No information was provided regarding the health of the trees being proposed for removal. 1 tree indicated on the site plan was not identified or dimensioned, and no replacement trees are proposed to be planted.
I recognize the applicant if they would like to present any information.
Diane Becker again, attorney for Copper Builders. Mr. Walker will speak on our behalf.
Please raise your right hand, Mr. Walker. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
As we've stated before, 307 is again one of the 3 lots that are adjacent to each other. This one has no structures on it other than a parking lot. So we are asking for the same consideration that we're asking for at 311. The replacement trees, we would again specifically say as part of a condition that a matching number of trees from each of the lots would be spread around the ultimate landscaping plan for any kind of redevelopment. The 1 tree that was indicated on the site plan, I checked the site plan one more time. That happened to be a double oak. I don't think that got caught, but that's why it showed 2 trunks on the backhand side. Again, this is the first step in the process of attempting to redevelop this area.
Thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? Yes.
Chris Crew, 306 Elm Street.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Once again, trees are a defining character feature in a historic district, in Raleigh's oldest historic district. There is no requirement to remove these trees to come up with an alternative design. Given the current economy and given the building practices going on in Raleigh and the number of townhouses, apartments, et cetera, being built, there is reasonable concern that these trees may be cut down and these buildings may be removed, and then nothing happens there. Then we end up with a vacant lot guarding the border of Raleigh's oldest historic district. The guidelines are moot on the point of whether you have to offer a 365 delay on tree removal. I think you can just deny it outright and hold off on removing those trees until you have a proposal that demonstrates the necessity for removing them. Thank you.
Any additional comment from the public on the case? Yes, please come forward.
Dee Penvin Crew, 306 Elm Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'd just like to echo that. At this point, we don't even know what the design might look like. We don't know that it would be approved. We know very little, except we want to tear down 2 houses and cut down a bunch of trees. Oakwood has been trying over the last decade to replace the tree canopy because of loss during hurricanes and ice storms. Losing big trees like this changes the character of the historic nature of the neighborhood itself. Until there is some kind of plan that has been approved, there is no reason to remove trees. It's just, for us, the trees in our neighborhood are a big part of our neighborhood. We had to have a tree removed in front of our house because of lightning damage, and it changed the character of the entire block because it was such a massive tree. These trees are big, they've been there a long time, and I think they deserve to stay until there's a reason for them to be cut down. Thank you.
Any additional comment from the public on the case?
Curtis Casefang, 519 Polk Street, Raleigh.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Echo previous comments and like to point out that you heard testimony and suggested that these lots cannot support the trees that are currently growing on them. Obviously, that's not the case because those trees are currently growing on them and are healthy. And this commission regularly requires a tree protection plan anytime there's any significant renovation on a property. That's happening for a reason, and those trees survive these renovations. So the justification that they should all be mowed down without knowing what's going up doesn't really hold water. And that's all I got for you. Thanks.
Judith Taylor, 115 North Bloodworth.
Do you solemnly, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Just to echo what was previously said by the other folks, and in this one particularly, since it's just tree removal, why do it now? So I would strongly recommend that you deny this particular case and wait and see what is going to go on with the whole property. As was noted, some of those trees are really big. They're wonderful trees. They are healthy trees. There is actually one unhealthy tree, but it's not on that property. It's a little bit north of that. But the tree provides a canopy. The trees also provide for us a block from our backyard, which butts up against that area. It provides a barrier to the noise that comes from the rest of the city. So the trees also provide, as was noted by a former gentleman as well on Jones Street, they just provide a barrier. So this one, please deny this case. Thank you.
Any additional comment from the public on the case? All right, hearing none, I will proceed with committee questions. Melissa, any? Lauren? I have one. Remind me which name again?
Charles Walker.
Mr. Walker, so when would you plan on, tearing these trees down?
We
I
do
mean,
not.
would this be like immediately?
We don't have a particular time. It's not like after the meeting next month where the bulldozers are going to show up. That's not our intention. We have not set a particular time to take them down if this is approved. If it needs to be married to the rest of the structure timing, that's fine.
That was my next question. I mean, would this be done, after the fact of another COA potentially being approved for redevelopment?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand.
My question probably wasn't very clear. Is your current intention to, should the COA be approved, and then should a redevelopment COA be approved later on down the road for the property? Is that at that time? Is that when you're thinking about removing the trees?
I understand that. Yeah, we're from this side of the table, those three lots are seen as a single entity. So what happens to one happens to the other, and with the same timing. I do want to mention just one or two things. The locations of those trees, as you saw on the side plan, are basically down the perimeter of this lot. Given the parking, the supportive parking for 311 and 320 and 307 are side by side. These trees are in, let's generously call them planting islands, because they're actually in the middle of gravel and asphalt parking lots that are about 10 feet wide. So they have grown to their environment, but any change to that environment, and those trees cannot survive the new environment. So that is why we are asking for this step. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions from the committee?
Just for staff, for me, just to be clear, the understanding is that demolition of significant building structures, sites, archaeological resources, objects, and trees, if given the 365-day delay, that is applicable to the entire site, including trees.
I will defer to Catherine on this one.
Yeah. So the statute talks about buildings and structures, and it does say site. I think might be some helpful context is that not everybody includes trees in their UDO as something that is requires a COA, but Raleigh does. Raleigh's UDO says that a COA is required prior to the removal of trees. So the statute doesn't say trees, and it seems to indicate that the 365-day delay applies to buildings and structures. I think what might be helpful is to focus on the standard regardless, which is incongruity, and there's nothing that prevents them from asking for it now, but typically there's a replacement plan that is imposed. So I don't know if you want to talk to the applicant about if they're willing. I think that's where you were going with the timing. But no, the statute doesn't really line up with what the UDO says about trees requiring a COA.
Based on that, any additional questions for the applicant or staff?
No, I think you were getting the rest of that information for me.
Okay. All right, thank you. You can have a seat. We'll bring the matter back to the table for committee discussion. Honestly, either way, if we approve it, it's not like they're going to start tearing down trees next month. That would be inefficient just to do that and not have any plan for the rest of the parcels. But then at the same time, they don't need to we don't need to approve this right now.
Is there a vehicle for us to deny it?
Yeah, you
can just deny it.
Yeah.
Is that true? This is.
So what makes that a little bit difficult is if you're denying it for a timing reason and not congruity. Remember, this is a final decision. So if it's denied, you can't come back again and ask again. So it would be better to just ask the applicant if the timing is your concern. The other thing is, I'm assuming that a tree replanting plan would be required prior to the replacement trees. So I don't know if there's a way to modify the proposed condition in a way that specifies that they can't be removed until that plan's been approved, potentially. But I think the applicant, you might want to talk to them about the timing, though, first. I just don't want to put somebody unintentionally in a bind where you've denied something just because you didn't think it was the right time to be before you.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
before we open up the public hearing again, I think, typically we would see, I haven't been on the committee that long, but I don't think I've seen really any cases where they're just about removal. There's no tree protection plan at all. So
Yeah, usually applications like this, it's just one parcel that's being subjected to demolition, not three that are
right.
Adjoining.
And it's typically not all the trees. It's
right.
Some get protected. So it's a little unusual in that way as well. So we typically would see a tree protection plan, and if in addition to a proposed planting plan. So like not having either of those things makes this a little bit difficult to review. Just asking to take the trees away.
Catherine, is approval of what you were mentioning earlier, saying that the trees couldn't be removed until a protection or replacement plan was in place, is that something that can be approved by staff, or is that something that would have to come back before us?
I think I would refer to staff, but it's been my understanding in past situations that that's going to be required regardless as an administrative approval. So that's just, I thought maybe could help alleviate your timing concerns. So staff can explain how that process works.
I think you could tie the placard so that the blue placard not be issued until staff reviews and approves a replacement plan would probably be the cleanest way to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and reopen the public hearing to ask a question of the applicant. It appears that the intent is to redevelop all three lots as one.
Yes.
And approval or continuing on that process, if we condition approval in a way that you couldn't remove the trees until a replacement and protection plan had been approved by staff, that would likely not occur until the plans for the entire site are.
Correct.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
And that's the simple reason why we have not proposed anything, because we know as part of a redevelopment package, it has a landscape plan, a required landscape plan. So what we had said from the beginning was we will make sure that the landscape plan will include at least 21 trees of the same height, mature, and species that is being removed. That's what we can promise at this moment.
It might be helpful to also ask if there's any reason why this needs to be done now as opposed to waiting until then. I don't know if that's been clarified.
No.
Okay. So, I mean,
So are you suggesting potentially withdrawing the application?
well, I'm just trying to figure out, I don't, like I said, I don't want, denial is supposed to be based on incongruity and not a
Yeah.
timing question. So it might be in everyone's best interest if you were willing to wait so that you guys can, but,
Just so I understand the term wait.
Well, is there a reason why this needs to be approved today, or could it be continued until you come back for a COA to develop the property? And I don't know enough about the timing to know, and I don't.
If we could, for clarity's sake, what I would like to suggest is that the tree removal on 307 would occur at no other time other than when the other lots are being worked on. So it's not, so if as in with 311 has a 365-day period, then 307 would match that 365-day requirement.
I see. If I understand correctly, I think you are asking to do tree removal prior to coming back for the redevelopment COA, because you'll do it as part of the demolition of the other structures. So that's their timing issue.
I guess my question is, you said that you're going to be recombining the three lots into one. Would you be amenable to doing this then? I mean, we will see that. We won't be able to take any action on the recombination, but we will see it.
Right, as it stands now, yes, you will review it.
Right, and there will be a COA for whatever
Yes.
is planned for that
Yes.
recombined lot. So I guess
that was our mentality in it, because we knew that the subsequent redevelopment plan would come back before you, and I'm sure that would be one of the things on your list, to make sure that the trees that we're talking about are included in the plan.
So I guess the question is, if it's all sort of theoretical, you're just imagining what will be on that lot, that future single lot, why not include the demolition of the trees in the COA for that new development? Why do all three now? I mean, maybe it's outside the scope of this committee to ask that question, but I think it would just
because we
ease
know
everyone's
now
general
that
heartburn.
the property is less, all three lots themselves are less than an acre. All three put together are less than an acre. And again, from a horticultural standpoint, the idea of trying to save one of those trees would eat up half of the property to meet City of Raleigh tree preservation standards. So we know we cannot meet that. So that's why we are coming and explaining exactly what we're trying to do.
Right, but I guess, we all clearly have a little bit of heartburn about this up
Understood.
here. And
Absolutely understood.
I think if you know if you know from a horticultural standpoint that you will have to demolish them no matter what, I guess question is, why not wait until you have that future COA to do that? I mean, is that something that you would be amenable to? It's really sort of a clerical difference rather than a functional one.
When we first started this project, that was one of the things we spoke about with staff, and because of the size of the trees, it was considered major work, and we needed to file a COA, which is why we're here.
Could I recommend maybe a 5-minute break so I can speak with the applicant's attorney about the wording of a potential condition to address this?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, great.
back in order, and I'm going to turn things over to Catherine.
Thank you. I've spoke with the applicant's attorney, and it sounds like they would be agreeable to adding as a additional condition that a 365-day delay be imposed prior to the tree removal, so that the tree removal on this parcel would line up with the other 2 parcels. And they can state for the record to confirm that.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Is there any additional questions for the applicant now that we have them up at the table? Okay, thank you very much. We will bring the matter back to the table for committee discussion.
Was the public hearing open? Were we allowed to speak?
No. Any further discussion? I'm going to move that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a 365-day demolition delay be imposed. And 2, that 6 replacement trees of a similar species, size, and mature canopy coverage to the trees being removed be planted on the subject property and/or in the right-of-way along the south property line. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion or debate on the motion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is approval of the application subject to the stated conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Last application on today's agenda is 325 East Edenton Street, COA 156-2024. Recognize staff for their presentation.
Yes, so this application is 325 East Edenton Street. It is the property to the east of 311 and 307. The nature of the request for this property is to demolish the contributing structure, remove landscaping and site features, including the front walk, driveway, and parking lot, and remove 4 trees. This is a view of the house from across Edenton Street, and a close-up. A view along the driveway of the west side, a view of the rear, and a view of the east facade. And the summary of staff concerns is that no evidence was provided to assert that the building has no particular significance or value towards maintaining the character of the Oakwood Historic District. Elevation, roof, and floor plan drawings documenting the structure were not provided. Demolition guidelines, including evaluating alternatives to demolition or salvage. The site plan does not provide dimensions that locate the house on the site, and no information was provided regarding the health of the trees proposed for removal, and no replacement trees are proposed.
All right, thank you. I recognize the applicant for their presentation. If they can come forward.
Diane Becker, attorney for Copper Builders. Mr. Walker will speak on their behalf.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
This is the final lot of the 3. It is currently used as a duplex. The same similar situations that we have talked about before. This is the 3rd part of what will potentially be a redevelopment in the area. We're asking for the structures and the trees and the landscaping and the associated features on the site to be allowed to be removed. We anticipate the 365-day delay on this site as well. And if you have any further questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to provide comment on the application? All right, please come forward.
Chris Crew, 306 Elm Street.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
This is a contributing structure in Raleigh's oldest historic district. Looking at the picture in front of me, I see conditions that would lead me to request that you begin a demolition by neglect proceeding on this structure before you address any other requests for COAs on this. There is clear evidence that there may be water infiltration going on in this, both through the porch deck and through the eave. At the top of this, there are 13 conditions in the UDO defining demolition by neglect. I can pick out probably half a dozen if you give me 5 minutes to look at this. This is a contributing structure. This structure guards the border of Raleigh's oldest historic district. And I am remiss in not welcoming and thanking the 2 new members of the commission for your service to the city. I'd like to take you back a year when we stood here and went back and forth over requests in the Prince Hall district to do development that did not earn a COA, and the result of that was a trip before the city council in which that lot was removed from the historic district. You're headed down that path with this. Your duty is the protection and preservation of Raleigh's historic districts and historic resources. And again, the law will not allow you to do anything but put a 365-day delay on demolishing this. But I think before you even consider that, you need to consider whether this house warrants a demolition by neglect finding and a requirement that something be done by that before they come back to you. I think you need to do everything you can to protect this corner of historic Oakwood, because today you are setting a precedent that will unravel all 8 of the historic districts in Raleigh if you don't act appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the case?
Matthew Brown, 401 North Person Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I would like to reiterate the comments I made for the other house. I hope you remember them. And thank you once again for your service. And thank you. This case is probably the most important case regarding Oakwood that, well, it's the most important case since the creation of the Historic Overlay District in 1975, and it will be the most important case that you all decide probably in your tenure here, at least regarding Oakwood. So thank you very much for your careful consideration. It would be tragic to lose these houses and lose these trees when what they're proposing will probably never be built. So thank you.
D. Penvin Crew, 306 Elm Street.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate all the comments that you've heard so far. This is our 1972. In 1972, the city of Raleigh and the state of North Carolina wanted to bulldoze most of the historic district. It had no protections at the time, and a group of neighbors got together because they recognized that the neighborhood had value, that if it were cared for, it would be a jewel in Raleigh's crown. And it has become that, not just because of the houses and they're fixed. It is a neighborhood like neighborhoods used to be. We care about one another. We care about loss. We care about caring for our neighbors' children, their dogs, their houses, their trees. When a tree gets cut down, a tree just got cut down in front of Curtis's house, and we all mourned the loss of that tree. We are terrified that this is going to cause a domino effect, that the bus rapid transit and the transit overlay zoning changes are going to start the beginning of the destroying of our neighborhood. Sorry. There's no reason to cut down a tree that is healthy when we believe with all our heart that there is no way a townhome development that is being proposed is going to be congruous with a historic district that you're proposing putting it in. I realize you only have a 360-day delay, but I beg you to at least put that in place. Thank you.
Are there additional members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the application? Yes, please. Yes, come forward. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Susan Iddings. I've lived in Oakwood since 1977.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
I'll be very brief. I just am concerned that what happens in this 300 block of Edenton is going to set the stage for the entire development of the transit district that you're setting up. And my word of caution is look at what happened to Glenwood South. When Glenwood South was first started, when it first became developed, what was that, 20 to 30 years ago, it was lovely. The restaurants were great. Gradually over time, then national companies, chains came in, and it totally lost its feeling. I'm afraid if this beginning stretch that borders Oakwood, if it starts to get developed in that manner, then that whole stretch of the transit district is going to have Hampton Inns and national chains come in, and it is going to be a loss to the city of Raleigh. So many people come to Oakwood because of the feeling of Oakwood. I think it's hard to to estimate the benefit to the city of Raleigh of Oakwood being there. And if you look at the development that has occurred further down on Person Street in the Franklin Street area, that area is bustling. It hasn't suffered the harms of development in downtown Raleigh. I think that if you preserve the beginning part of the transit area in the Oakwood neighborhood, it will set the tone for all of the development going out. Please let that be local development so that it is not on the scale of what happened to Glenwood South. Glenwood South is now a place for most people to avoid, and the same thing could happen, and this whole city of Raleigh would be to its detriment. Thank you.
Are there additional members of the public who'd like to provide comment on the application? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. James Hunter, 109 North Bloodworth Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to the city, and thank you for having this hearing today. I'm one of the 5 homeowners adjacent to this property, and I want to really zero in on 325 relative to the other request. Most of the residents and homeowners of the 5 properties on North Bloodworth that back up to this house are young families with children, so they're not able to join today, but I want to speak on their behalf. The remit of the commission here is obviously to focus on historic preservation. So I want to underscore how close this property is to the North Bloodworth properties, and if they were replaced with townhomes, what that might do to the character of the other properties on Bloodworth in particular. How the distance to the fence, we're essentially adjacent to the fence. You can't really see this in the pictures. But we have different opinions on the density. A lot of us chose Oakwood because we want to be in a dense part of town, and we aren't necessarily opposed to developing townhouses in the other lots, particularly the empty lots in our neighborhood. But with regard to this particular property, it's an original Oakwood property, just like the rest of our houses. And if we set the precedent of allowing this one to be demolished for townhouses, it opens up a conversation about that happening everywhere else. Up until July 2nd, this property was R10. July 2nd, the city council rezoned, as everybody knows here, I think. But I would encourage everyone to go look at that conversation and debate around this particular lot. I don't think there's a lot of discussion about the idea of this being an original Oakwood property and being rezoned. I would encourage you to reject the application and or at least use whatever authority you have here on this particular property to delay demolition. I know you're limited legally, but I appreciate your attention and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there additional comments from the public on the case?
Judith Taylor, 115 North Bloodworth, one of the 5 properties that James just mentioned.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Just to reiterate and support the comments that have already preceded me about this property, but the concern about all 3 properties that you really need to look at in its entirety and what can be built there. It's not a piece of land that works very well, and so the replacement that could go in there as townhouses doesn't make sense. Why not do, as we do in England, replace it with something that fits with the neighborhood? As has been said, this little frontage is part of the entry to downtown Raleigh and the Oakwood district. So it is really important to retain the historical nature of those 3 houses, 2 houses and the vacant lot. So concern about what's happening with the district, concern about that section of Edenton Street, again, concern about the trees and the question mark as to 2 of them are beautiful pin oak trees. In one of the other lots, you're talking about a 30-inch tree. I don't know how, other than if you are, as my husband said, part of the Augusta Golf Club where they move trees that size. How do you move at least 10 of them are 30-inch pin oak trees that are yay tall? So please work out what it is you really want to see happen. You're a historic preservation group, so please pay attention to those 2 words. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the public on the case? All right. Seeing none, I'll provide the applicant an opportunity to respond to the public comments if they desire.
Thank you for your time. As we had said before, we see this as one redevelopment opportunity for these 3 lots. As far as some of the things that were discussed here, the rezoning case that was sponsored by the City of Raleigh has in it height regulations ranging from 3 stories to, I believe, the tallest in the district is allowed to be 6. This section of the overlay district, its cap is 3. So it can be no more than a 3-story structure. And we understand when we come back with a redevelopment plan that we will need to focus on how best to fit this on the property and to address the commission's review comments. But again, this is the third of the area to complete and have the ability to do the project. As the gentleman said before, this is currently zoned R10. R10 allows townhomes. So the rezoning in this particular house doesn't have a change of use bearing on it. We appreciate the focus that the commission has given on this case.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay right there in case there are any committee questions. I don't think so. No. Okay. Thank you. You can have a seat. Go ahead and close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Is there any discussion on the application? Lauren?
mean, I think I just wanted to say that to jump off from the last application where Jordan mentioned this creating heartburn, I do want to say, for the record, at least for conversational purposes, that not just heartburn, but also heartache. This is exactly the kind of thing that the guidelines say should be discouraged. I think we would want a stronger word for it. And I think that, those of us who've lived in Raleigh do recognize these structures as iconic to, as I say, the gateway into historic Oakwood. And I would like to say that whatever does get proposed to come back here not only needs to be considered deeply as far as the UDO standards for what needs to go here, but also keep in mind that we will be keeping a stern eye on its relationship to the well-related structures and this district. And even though I think it feels like it's difficult to have teeth in this moment for us because of what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do, that doesn't indicate, I think, the way that the reason we're up here and how we feel about this project.
Thank you, Lauren. Anything else from the committee? Jordan, Melissa? All right. Given the application, the evidence presented in the staff report and the evidence presented by the applicant, I move that the application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a 365-day demolition delay be imposed. 2, that an RHDC appointed volunteer serve as a liaison to the property owner to assist the owner in reviewing all alternatives to demolition and or salvage opportunities during the 365-day delay. 3, that 4 replacement trees of a similar species, size, and mature canopy coverage to the trees being removed be planted on the subject property and or in the right-of-way along the south property line. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion or debate?
Yeah. Do we want to tie the 365-day delay to the other property the way we did with the previous?
I think all the parcels have a 365-day delay on them, so they'd run concurrently.
That's correct. We won't issue the placard.
Yeah, you could, for condition 1 says that the 365-day delay shall be imposed. You could say, amend that to say, including for tree removal.
Yeah. Okay. We can, I'm fine with amending my motion to say that. Motion as amended is on the floor. Any further discussion or debate?
Second.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Again, thank you. The application will be final after next month's meeting when the minutes are approved and signed. So, thank you. All right, that is the last matter on today's agenda. Is there any discussion or items to come before the committee?
Just a question, maybe for staff or Catherine. The RHDC appointed volunteer for like demolition delay. Does it have to be an RHDC member?
Yes. I'm going to let staff answer that because that's a specific condition that's been used before.
And that was going to be my comment as well. If you want to think about it and decide amongst yourselves who would like to volunteer, we can do that at the January meeting. I know for the last case, Rob and Lauren will be working together. So I don't know if you want to continue some combination of that or
if you have any specific interest in serving in that role. I've served in that role, and I mean, it's kind of, there's no set structure or how to do it. The one time I did it, met separately with the applicant and their attorney, and they kind of brought to me, what they had looked at as it comes to either relocation or salvage, and you can assist them in that process. You can provide them feedback, but there's really just no set way to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess I will add, it has to be a commission member, but that could include members that are not on the COA committee.
Got it.
I would say at least one of the COA committee members should be, but if you want to bring in someone else from the commission, that's...
Sure.
It actually does come from statute if you're interested, and it says that during the period, the Preservation Commission shall negotiate with the owner about finding, So it does indicate it has to be somebody on the RHDC.
Okay. Great.
Nothing we have.
Yeah,
to
I'll volunteer.
All right. Well, there you go. That's decided. For all three, or for any specific one? It probably makes sense just to do for all three, since that's all similar owner. All right. Anything else to come before the committee? All right. Hearing nothing, this meeting is adjourned.